Hey, seventh grade. So our learning target for today is I can evaluate expressions. So we're going to be going, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally again today. We'll be on page 1. We're just starting our algebra unit. So we're going to talk about our first 3 steps in how we're going to deal with these evaluating expressions today. Number 1, we're going to substitute or replace each variable letter with the equivalent number value. Go ahead and write. There's quite a bit to write there. So go ahead and copy the notes that you see for number 1. Okay, seventh grade. So here we go. After we do that, we're going to do step number 2, which is to stop, chop, chop if necessary, which means only if it's a subtraction problem. Everybody should be reading step 2. Everybody's writing step 2. Okay, and moving on to step 3. Use the order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Go ahead and copy those notes. I'll give you some time. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on now, but if you need to stop the video to catch up on notes or pause the video, if you have a substitute today and you need more time, go ahead and tell them very politely and respectfully that you would like more time to copy those notes. Otherwise, we're going to move on. All right, so here's our plan for today, is we're going to do something called substitution. So very similar to if you were substituting into a game, you would have number 5 come out of the game and number 10 go into the game. Same process is going to be happening in our math work today. So the variable's coming out, a number's going in. So we're going to have x equal to -2 in all of our work on this first page. Y is going to be equal to 5 in all of those work, and z is going to be equal to 10. So there's our substitution that's happening, and we're going to start solving. So for the x value, we're going to put in a -2. So we're going to go ahead and put in a -2 in the x spot. We're going to keep our sign, which is subtraction. And then for y, we're going to put a 5. So in the y spot, we are going to go ahead and put a 5. Sign is plus. And in the z spot, we're going to go ahead and put a 10. So wherever we see this z, we are going to put a 10. So we have -2 minus 5 plus 10. All right. So we're going to go ahead and stop, chop, chop, because we do not subtract in Ms. Volkman's class. Order of operations would be please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So we're going to deal with those parentheses first. We don't have any. We don't have any powers. We don't have any multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So we'd end up with -7 there plus 10 equals +3. Why? I have to pay $7. I have $10 in the bank. Can I take $7 out of a bank that has 3 in it? Yes. So my answer is +3. So everybody should have an answer of +3 for your answer here. Okay, moving on to the next problem. For this next problem, we're going to put an x of -2 in. We're going to put a y of 5 in, and we're going to put a z of 10 in. Be very careful on your sign usage here. So as we start to substitute, notice that this is multiplication operation here. So that's -2 multiplied by 5, and then we're going to subtract the z value. I'm going to go ahead and use a parenthesis for the z value due to the fact that there is a power of 2 there. As I substitute in for the z value, I'm going to substitute in for a 10. All right, order of operations says, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We do have parentheses, but inside all 3 of those parentheses, we just have one number. So we're going to move on to exponents or powers. Our exponent right here is 10. We have 2 of those, so that's 10 times 10, which is equal to 100. If I haven't used it, I drag it down. Keep in mind that the operation in between here is multiplication. The exponents are gone. Multiplication, division kick in next. So everybody should be multiplying or dividing next, which is happening right here. This is a triangle problem. If we think back to what a triangle problem is, we would say we're going to watch our sign. So we have a negative on the 2. We have a positive on a 5. So our output is then -10. If I haven't used it, I drag it down. All right, we're going to go ahead and stop, chop, chop through that. And we end up with -110, -110. Go ahead and watch your signs there. Pay 10. I pay 10. I pay 100. If I pay 10, pay 100, I end up with -110. Okay, 7th grade, here we go. Our third example, evaluate. So we have a division sign here, so be very careful. That division sign is there. And with that division sign, maybe I'll change that to just a darker purple because I'm using the highlighter to represent the x, the y, and the z. Here's my x value. I'm going to put a -2 into that spot. My y value, I'm going to put a, whoops, sorry about that. That is not what I meant to do. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Our y value then is the green highlight, is 5. I'm not going to be inputting the z value anywhere in this problem. I'm going to use parentheses on this x value here due to the power there. So we always have to be careful about that substitution. We're going to put a -2 in there, power is 2. Plus 16, that's all in the numerator. In the denominator, I'm going to take out this y and I'll put a 5 in. Substitution, 5 goes out of the game. No, pardon me, y goes out of the game, 5 goes in the game. All right, guys, here we go. So as I start to solve, I need 2 of those. 2 of that -2, 2 of these. So that's -2 times -2. That's a triangle problem there. -2 times -2 is +4 plus 16 in the numerator. +4 plus 16 in the numerator. In the denominator, we have a 5. All right. Cleaning this up then, we have 4 plus 16 in the numerator, which is 20. We're going to divide by 5. 20 divided by 5. We don't have to worry about any signs there. Don't have to worry about the triangle problem at all. Final answer then is +4. So your answer should be +4 there. Sorry about my spacing there. I'm trying to write this on a tablet, which makes the spacing hard for me to write. Okay, if you need to pause the video at this time, go ahead and pause it. If you have a substitute today, very politely ask if substitute will pause it. Otherwise, we are going to move on. In the next 3 problems then, we're going to be dealing with the jail bar idea. So all of this stuff is living in jail. X minus y plus z. We'll substitute a -2 in there. We will substitute a 5 in here, and we will substitute a 10 in there, all living in jail. Now, you'll notice it's the exact same problem that's listed above, except it's all living in jail. So let's go ahead and do our substitution. X, Y, and Z are coming out of the game. We're going to substitute 3 people. So this is like a shift change in the game Sport of Hockey. All right, here we go. We're going to go ahead and put a -2 in for X. The sign in the middle is subtract. We're going to put a Y, 5 in for Y. The sign in the middle is add. And then we're going to put a 10 for Z. So we should have -2 minus 5 plus 10. I said no. We do not subtract in Ms. Volkman's class, so we're going to stop, chop, chop. Cleaning up from left to right. Order of operations. We're going to work from left to right here. So we're going to do all that first. Again, it's living inside of these jail bars. So we end up with a -7. If I haven't used it, drag it down. So all of that we drag down. Still living in jail bars. Cleaning this up then. -7 plus 10 becomes +3, living in jail. And we pull out of jail, we get a +3. Answer should be +3. +3. Go ahead and take a look at that 7th grade. See how you feel? All right, guys, how we doing? Next problem here, we have this jail bar problem, which is the exact same question as the question living above, but just adding jail bars. Let's see how it changes things. So we have a multiplication sign happening here. Make sure we use a parenthesis on the z because of the power. All right, so here we go. We have a x value of -2. We have a y value of 5. We're going to subtract in the middle. And my z value, make sure we're using a parenthesis because of this little power here, is going to be 10 power 2. All of this is living in these jail bars. Order of operations is that we have to do the multiplication first. We're going to go ahead and do this multiplication. There's a triangle problem there. So we end up with -2 times 5, which is -10. If I haven't used it, whoops, made a mistake there. Let's go back and talk about everything I just did wrong there. So this is good for you guys to see. I actually made a mistake back here, so we're going to go ahead and start over on this problem. I did not follow the order of operations, which is good for you to see that it's very easy to make that mistake. If we go back to please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, parentheses have to happen first. Now, you don't see any parentheses in this problem. I wrote one in around that z value, but it's actually doesn't have to be there. We do have an exponent, though, so we're going to have to do that power first, which is where kids can get off course a little bit. So that's -2 times 5 minus, now I'm going to use a parenthesis around the z value, and we're going to have to the power of 2. I have to do this power first. So that becomes -2 times 5 minus, that's 10 times 10, which is 100. Now notice I didn't stop, chop, chop yet. As I clean this up then, the multiplication has to happen first. Now you can go ahead and use parentheses here if you prefer that over that multiplication dot. Now I do my multiplication, negative 10. If I haven't used it, I drag it down. All living in jail. I said no. We do not subtract in Ms. Volkman's class. We're going to go ahead and stop, chop, chop, which gives us 110. Negative 110 living in jail. We're going to go ahead and pull out of jail, which is positive 110. Answer should be positive 110. Now, I hope you saw my mistake. I was going to do the order of operations out of order there. I was working left to right, which is not always true. You do have to take care of the exponent of 10 squared first before you can multiply. Might have worked out okay anyway on this problem, but we do have to follow order of operations. So it's good for you to see that I did make that mistake because you probably would make similar mistakes. All right, our last problem of the day before we hit that summary is this. We have the square root symbol, which really is the order of operations first place. It's tied for first place. Absolute value, jail bars, square roots, and the parentheses are all tied for first place. So we're going to do some substitution here. We're going to put in our x value of negative 2 there. We're going to put our y value of 5 on the bottom. So we're going to clean this up. Now notice it is the exact same problem that's listed above, but we've added the square root symbol. So for this x, now notice I'm putting a parenthesis in. Why? Because there's a power there. We always have to be careful when there's a power. We need a parenthesis to protect. Plus 16, that's my numerator. In the denominator, I'm just going to put the number 5. So we're going to solve all this stuff on the inside first. Negative 2 squared is really saying negative 2 times negative 2, which is a triangle problem, which is 10. I'm sorry, negative 2 times negative 2. I didn't mean to say 10. Sorry about that. Negative 2 times negative 2, guys, which should be positive 4. So we have a positive 4 there, plus 16 all over 5 in the denominator. We have a giant square root protecting all of that, kind of like living inside of a cave. We've got to clean this up. In that numerator, we have 4 plus 16, which is 20. Over 5, all living inside the square root. 20 divided by 5 is 4 inside the square root. We have the square root of 4. Remember, that means we have a square that has an area of 4. What we're looking for is what is the side length of the square that has an area of 4. The answer is 2, positive 2. Notice I didn't say 2 times 2. The answer is positive 2. A couple things in the summary then. So for the summary, remember that we have to stop, chop, chop. Then remember that first place for our P, for PEMDAS, it's a three-way tie. It's parentheses, it's jail bars, and it's square roots. That's our first place three-way tie. It's tied. That hasn't happened until 7th grade, so make sure you're comfortable with that. So our order of operations are kicking in today with jail bars, pretty much everything that's brand new for us. And those jail bars, square roots, negatives, triangle problems, stop, chop, chops, all of that. Your homework for tonight is to just do all of page 2, due tomorrow. Okay, guys, have a fabulous day.